When we look at the Star Wars trilogy as a whole, there is a sense of a Greek monomyth to it, and along with it, a kind of circular storytelling. And even though there is different storytelling or different storytelling aspects within each trilogy perfectly fits into the saga as a whole. There are 3 trilogies within the saga, and within each trilogy there's 3 movies, and within each movie there are 3 acts. But each trilogy has a different genre that it tries to emulate. If we look back at storytelling or theater or whatever kind of art form as a whole, everything leads back to Greek theater. We see this Greek theater basic emulated in the original trilogy. It's very tied together with the Greek myth, such as a Herculean story of a boy who figures out he is more than enough to go on this hero's journey and figures out his family is important and his father is not who he thought he was. He learns more about himself, but there is a lot of father-son dynamics. The story of the original trilogy really hones in on Luke as a whole, like as a particular main shining star in the trilogy. They do have other main characters such as Leia and Han, but there's a separate story of love that you find in a Greek comedy of sorts. Technically back then, whenever they did theater, there was 2 types of theater. There was comedy or drama, and comedy usually had like a romance to it, sometimes had action, but comedy didn't mean like funny, it meant that it had a happy ending. But that's really what George Lucas was going for the original trilogy, to have a Greek feel to it, because he based his character on Hero's Journey, which could be traced back to Greek storytelling. He had the basis for that for Star Wars as a whole. When we get to the prequels, it is more heavily based in Shakespearean tragedy. You have Anakin as a Macbeth/Hamlet character who strives to be someone with power, but someone who also tries to save people. Like, he tries to save Padme, but his power ends up being his downfall. And then you have Padme being a Ophelia type of character. There's good intentions with Ophelia, and she is a important character to especially Hamlet's downfall. It's kind of another nail in the coffin of him going crazy. Padme as Ophelia, and then you have Obi-Wan as Horatio, the last man standing. He is the one to tell the story after everyone's dead and gone. Now we have the sequel trilogy, and I know it's not finished yet, but I was doing research and I was trying to figure out what does it emulate the most. And because first of all we have 2 protagonists, the main protagonists, which is Rey and Ben Solo. We've been told by J.J. Abrams they are both one half of the protagonist, so that together they are one. I was thinking about it and I realized that this very much emulates a Victorian romance. Imagine you're watching a remake of Pride and Prejudice and you have 2 halves of the protagonists. You have Elizabeth Bennet and you have Mr. Darcy. Elizabeth Bennet is a woman who comes from not a very good social status. She heeds her own journey. She makes way of her own life. But even though Elizabeth is independent, she has so much more to learn. She has these preconceived notions in her head that needs to be changed, or she needs to live life in order to realize everything isn't as it seems. Then we have Ben. He comes from a very wealthy status. He's a prince. He's very much a leader. He's very stubborn. He knows what he wants. He's going to get what he wants. He's also an independent kind of character. But when the 2 meet, there's an unfortunate meeting. As far as Elizabeth and Darcy's standpoint, it isn't as life and death, but in Ben and Rey's it is. And she just has this preconceived notion of Ben in her mind. That's when in The Last Jedi they become more acquainted with one another and realize that they are both the same person, which is what Pride and Prejudice is. What I'm saying is the sequel trilogy is a Victorian romance. So with that in mind, you can walk into The Rise of Skywalker, and I don't want to say completely because I have no idea what's going to happen in that. I have some ideas, but there is heavy influences on the Victorian romance as a genre in this entire trilogy, and I would be surprised if they went any other way with the last third. Yeah, that's it. Follow me on my socials, which will be linked down below or at the end of the video. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe, and that's it. Oh! Palpatine is Catherine de Bourgh. That's inspiring. Okay, bye.